Workers of Reddit, what is the most disturbing thing your company doesn't get away with? Fast food, cooperate, retail, government? I worked for a gas station. Access to the 75,000 gallon underground tank is protected by a single lock less strong than the ones on high school lockers. The 4-digit password on it was written on the lock in Sharpie. Not that you needed it, it was the store address. Non-profit. That's actually not a non-profit. We claim we donate all of our proceeds to research for children's orthopedics, which doesn't happen. It's really disappointing, as the executive director claims the company is worth $3 million. Yeah, that's not legal. When I used to work in retail, we had these things called great values. Every sale we'd put yellow tags on top of items that weren't actually on sale, which we were allowed to do because it didn't actually say sale or special, just great value. It was always funny to see people walk by them and say something like that's a really good deal and buy the item even though it was regular price. I've seen similar stuff at other department stores, so I assume it must be fairly common. Target does this too. They put up as advertised signing that looks just like sale special signing. The as advertised price is almost always the full price. I've almost fallen for it so many times. I used to work at Ritz Camera. They went bankrupt several times and were always cutting corners. After the first bankruptcy, the photo labs stopped properly disposing of the printing chemicals. Instead, they poured them down the sink or on the ground outside the store. I watched over 30 gallons go down the drain on my last day. I ordered a camera and they shipped it without a signature required. It wasn't even an option when shipping. They left a $1,200 camera on my doorstep while I was at work. At my job, I work with all sorts of cylinders which package practically any type of gas. On occasion, when we take out the valves, inside we'll find thick oil that has somehow contaminated the cylinder. So we dump trichloroethylene into it, swish it around, and dump the contents right down the drain. No filtration or anything. State government. The governor can appoint his friends and buddies to prominent positions in state government even though the people don't even meet the bare minimum requirements for the jobs. I used to work in a restaurant where on busy nights, or on nights when staff were sick, they would ring up people to come in for a 3-hour trial, and get them to run out food and drinks to the tables. All unpaid, of course, followed up at the end of the shift by "sorry, you're just not the right type of person we're looking for." A company I worked for installed 800 fake fire doors in a 8-floor building that is home to police officers occupying important posts in the force. They charged around £1,100 for each door. The real doors were just panel doors made to look like fire doors. With everything, including the men installing them, they cost around £130. I felt like a criminal. No one cared. Yeah, you should probably tell someone about that. I worked for New Horizons, a franchise company that offers computer skills training. They regularly, and anonymously, advertise great jobs for techies. These jobs do not exist. They collect resumes and use the info to contact job seekers, saying the hiring company they applied to wants to interview them, but they require more training. If you bite and pay for training, you are told later that the job was filled by someone else. Essentially, New Horizons advertises fake jobs, gives false hope for a job that doesn't exist, charges the poor job seeking saps for training, rinses and repeats. They are still doing this today, with generic job posts all over CareerBuilder. CareerBuilder knows, but doesn't care because they get paid to place the fake ads. Unfortunately, the only testing center in my area. Frick those guys. We have a zero tolerance violence policy. Basically, we are told that if another employee assaults you, you should just lay on the floor and wait for someone to call security to assist you. If you try to defend yourself, i.e. blocking punches, kicks, repeated stabbing with a knife, you both get fired. It's completely insane. If I'm on the street and someone attacks me and I defend myself, I can press charges against them. But in work, nope. They even make you sign a form stating that you cannot sue the organization for damages. You should start a brawl with the CEO. Hire temps for years at a time, just so they don't have to pay for health care, holidays, paid time off, etc. I guess you can't be 44th richest man in the world by being decent. Michael Dell? Many retailers put a tremendous amount of pressure on employees and especially managers to open a certain amount of loyalty accounts, customer credit cards. I have watched managers outright bribe customers to open new accounts to meet the daily goal, even if they were not likely to be approved, because the managers still get credit for attempting to open new cards. I have also watched employees basically prey on younger people who don't understand how credit cards work in order to open new accounts. But the Target card really is great. It's a debit card, not a credit card, and it saves you 5% every time you shop. Please tell my manager I'm doing good. Attorney here. I have a duty to protect my clients at almost all costs, which means at times I have to take positions against people who I know have suffered. It doesn't mean in the eyes of the law that the opposing party is necessarily automatically deserving of something in return, but it does take a lot out of you to require a paralyzed little girl to prove her case. I love my attorney. I consider myself an average educated person, but man, law is crazy confessing. He has helped me tremendously in life. My point is, yes, lawyers are awesome and thank you for taking the time, energy and money to decipher our crazy law systems. Griffles Biomet USA. They strategically put their donation centers next to or near liquor stores to exploit the fact that it will attract more donors. You get paid roughly $30 to make a donation. You should not even drink coffee for several hours afterwards because plasma donation dehydrates the frick out of you. You absolutely shouldn't drink. But don't mind the liquor store right there, especially if you're an alcoholic, like 98% of the donor population is, addicted to insert a substance here. They employ people for near minimum wage jobs, run their employees into the ground, and create such a dangerously violent and entitled donor crowd that employees have been attacked, the door has been ripped off, the building vandalized. The donors go apeshit because they know they can get away with it and get paid $10 to go away. It's led to people quitting out of fear. I carried a concealed weapon, despite being against company policy because the donor screening rooms are set up in a manner that places the donor between you and the door. Most of us were short little ladies. That is not okay. People get fired for attendance. Anything that isn't a scheduled absence, such as being in the hospital from a car accident, is an infraction. Doesn't matter if you have sick time. People get write-ups because of court dates, illness, children being ill, literally everything. One of my co-workers was fired because her son broke his arm at school and she had to leave work to go to the hospital. I was given a write-up because I had to have emergency oral surgery. I was literally going to die if I didn't get it done in the next 2 days. To top it off, the center I worked in ended up having the whole management staff replaced with Mormons who came up from Utah. It was all fine and dandy until the quality department and the lab staff began to notice everyone was getting fired and replaced with Mormons. 6 months later I was fired for a $20 shortage in my till. On occasion, money sticks together, particularly when new, and you can't tell or peel it apart with nitrile gloves on, but you can't not wear gloves by SOP. About 3 years later I run into an old co-worker who ended up fired 10 months before we encountered each other, and he informed me that the center was under investigation for exactly the conspiracy we were joking about. They were firing all non-Mormons and bringing in their kin. Freaking insanity. I have 5 years of hellish stories surrounding this place, and everyone who knows me knows how inhumane the Griffles company treats its employees. You aren't people, you're just crappy equipment with an expiration date to them the day you refuse to bend over and take it up the butt. I used to work for the company that hosted your patient intake software. The plasma industry is insane. So many profits for so little effort. That $30 donation could be worth $900 or higher in the pharmaceutical market. Hardware store uses a loophole in local laws that says employees are under a probationary period of 3 months once hired. They fire a good 60% of employees after 3 months. Not illegal, but scumbaggy, and most of the fires are students who are just refusing to work the store's 9-hour shifts, 9 AM to 6 PM, without breaks. You eat lunch on your feet while doing sales. And that's when you get the doll involved for the lunch thing. US Navy ships throw all kinds of crap overboard. Paper, plastic, metal has waste, insane amounts of jet fuel. The casualness that everybody has with it is pretty disturbing too. Rounding. The government rounds everything up. Estimating your budget will be $500K. Just round it up to an even million. Need $1.5 million? Make it $2 million. Need $5 million? Make it $10 million. The rounding itself doesn't bother me nearly as much as the forced spending. Got your approved budget of $1 million that you rounded up from $500k? Spend it all or you get less next year. My other annoyance is the massive reliance on contracting. You can't get extra budget to hire a single person, but you can get $2 MR indefinitely to contract that work out. To be fair, agencies devise their budgets 2 years in advance, so most err on the side of caution and estimate far more than they actually need to operate. Also, because of the reliance on contracting for so long, most agencies don't know how to do anything themselves anymore. Instead, they're solely a bureaucracy for the management of third parties. I worked at a chain ice cream parlor one summer in high school. Whenever we made a mistake with a sundae or prepared item, it went into a container in a freezer. It was one of the buckets we use for hand-packed pints and gallons, so it looked like any other to-go ice cream for retail sale. It would become a gross mash of various flavors and toppings, whipped cream, nuts, whatever weird crap people ordered. As it got full, we'd smash it down until it was a relatively solid, striated block of ice cream and stuff. It was on the menu as company name. Surprise, and it was supposed to be a marvelous mixture of our finest flavors and toppings. It was so freaking nasty looking, and after a week or so it began to smell weird. I mean, some stuff just doesn't go together at all. Chocolate and peanut butter in with sherbet and fruits and rubbery half melted and refrozen whipped cream. Every time someone asked about it, we'd all discourage them in any way possible. When the owner was around though, all we could do is smile and hand it over. I'm using a throwaway account for obvious reasons. My company has no quality assurance. I am an engineer for a biotech company that doesn't hire quality assurance engineers for the product. They are way more concerned about selling it and making money. Our engineering team is horribly understaffed and underqualified. The CEO would rather invest more in salespeople more than anything. We have been threatened by our customers to be reported to the government, but somehow we keep sidestepping the issue. Last week a customer reported that our ECG monitoring product was screwing up majorly for kids under 1 year old. For frick's sake, we have children's lives at stake. The ECG monitoring product also doesn't work for people that have heart attacks and are admitted to the emergency room. Our product is so shoddily built and the CEO is always against rebuilding it from scratch since it works just fine. For all hopes of the future, I want this company shut down as soon as freaking possible. It is a plague on the health industry and the CEO is only interested in money and market. TLDR. I think you guys just better read this crap. I can't freaking sleep at night sometimes knowing that I work for a company that gets away with this crap. I used to work at a Kmart that was going out of business. During the liquidation process, all the prices were doubled and put on sale again for the original price. People ate that crap up. In fact, it worked so well the Kmart was back in business. Forced spending. Oh, we've been watching pennies for 9 months in case something happens, so we have a surplus. Spend that be. Don't save it or roll it over. Don't give bonuses. Don't do anything productive with it. Frick, it drives me crazy. Something about how they're not allowed to spend it on the wages section and are on miscellaneous items section. Though it's probably the policy of, if you spend less this year you get less next year. No rollovers. As far as I know, the US Gov and most companies do this. Let me tell you about Yellow Book, now known as Hibu. Yes, lowercase. The company has been trying to position itself as a digital marketing provider for the last few years. They now offer websites, Google Apps, videos, etc. in addition to print products like the Yellow Book. Please, if you are a local business, do not ever buy anything from Yellow Book, Hibu, or any of the other clones out there. Please, I beg you. All products, print and digital, are designed and created offshore in India or the Philippines. But this explains why a landscaper in Florida might find his website as a snow removal page. Quality assurance is also done offshore. The best part is that to become a quality assurance associate you do not have to be a web graphic designer or copywriter. The quality assurance team is made up of randoms that the company can pay the lowest amount to. It would make sense to fill the team with the best designers, writers, but that would cost more. Sorry, Florida landscaper. That snow removal page is going live. The company lacks even the most basic ROI tracking software, which means no one has any idea if any of the products work. This is the scariest part, in my opinion. Most of the customers aren't giant businesses. They are local businesses that cannot afford to waste $3,000 a year on stuff that doesn't work. Or worse, stuff that you have no idea if it works or not. The sales reps who convince local businesses to spend thousands a year on digital products are mostly print holdovers. They sold tons of print ads back in the day. These are the type of people who still use AOL. In addition to the sales reps being print holdovers, the managers in the company are also from the Stone Age. The company loves to promote from within, which is good. Sometimes, the problem is when you try to change the company's principal products and now you have a print holdover trying to manage the production of digital products. My roommate works there. He calls me to tell me how many times per day he has to explain the internet to old people in the middle of America. My last job was at a science museum with elaborate exhibits on recycling, water conservation, how to prevent contamination from runoff, etc. The office area of the museum did not have recycling bins. I kept a cardboard box on my desk labeled recycling, do not throw out, and personally delivered my recyclables to the bin in the parking garage every week. Worst of all, the museum contracted with a pest control agency to have the building sprayed regularly to kill spiders that lived on the outside of the building. Not ants or roaches or any other pest that is actually problematic, but spiders, predators that naturally control the pest population. The extermination was ordered regularly solely for aesthetics, and the pesticides were not green. The worst part about this? The Science Museum is built directly over Lake Michigan, so all that pesticide runs directly into the water below. Just a couple examples of the ridiculous hypocrisy at work at the institution, and one reason I quit that job. TLDR. A science museum I used to work for does not practice what it preaches regarding conservation and preservation. I work for a large ISP who has gone through a series of mergers in the past 5 years. I have watched the company go from a regional, very customer-oriented mindset to completely profit-driven. The one thing that gets me more than all the rest is the handling of areas and bandwidth exhaust, i.e. too little bandwidth to support the customer base. For most customers, this causes slow speeds, frequent service disconnects, and, in the extreme, complete lack of connectivity. My company continues to charge these customers full price and will only credit a bill 1 month at a prorated rate. In most cases, these take several months to be resolved, frequently more than a year. This bothers me enough, but in some areas, where the revenue does not merit an investment in infrastructure, it is simply tagged as permanent exhaust and left as is. The basic philosophy is most people will continue to pay for what little they get, and if they drop service, we will charge contract fees. Sometimes, enough people leave that the bandwidth normalizes to provide halfway decent service and it's all good. However, more often than not, it is simply left as an entire market of people who are hoping for a resolution, never to get one. Oh, and it's policy not to inform people if it's permanent. Reps are supposed to assure them that it is being worked on, and sales reps are told to continue to sell service in these areas. My ex-boss made it seem like our department was always swamped. He kept justifying more and more hiring until there were 10 people. This of course led to hiring 2 managers under him and he got bumped to a director level. The reality is that there is only enough work for 2 people. These are all high-paying technical jobs. Basically this guy hired a ton of people to do work that didn't exist so he could use a large headcount to get himself promoted. So you had little work and he employed a bunch of people. Sounds like a good situation. Lots of grant-funded ed programs or non-profits complain about budget constraints and threaten layoffs until the end of the year, and when they see there is a surplus, they go on a buying spree. Last year my supervisor, after bringing up having to cut staff various times, bought 5 iPads, and then attended 4-5 national conferences at very nice hotels. It makes sense from a pragmatic standpoint. The money we don't spend, we send back, and that looks bad, but it is really annoying. Maybe not extremely disturbing. Also, Kids with more severe needs are often prioritized in funding, so sometimes our bosses will get really excited when a kid is priority for service, meaning they have serious issues, because it doubles funding for that kid. Doesn't change instruction, just means more iPads to sit in our dusty iPad collection. A school district in our state has 3 450-inch TVs, among tons of other things like computers and projectors and stuff, and 2 of them are still in the box from a buying spree a while ago, and when we went and did an inventory, they were all deflecting blame to each other, saying, "Where did this stuff come from? Who did this?" I work at a public university. Our student body is typically low income, low GPA, inner city, first generation students. These are students that, typically, don't get accepted anywhere else. Some may have been accepted elsewhere, but chose here because it is less expensive. There are a lot of commuter students also. Some are forced to go to college by their families and then spend a semester smoking weed and getting wasted. Most of them, not all, but most of them have almost zero chance of graduating with a diploma. Many of them receive financial aid, but most are also taking out a lot of student loans. Our graduation rate is abysmal and embarrassing. We're working on it, but frick is it bad. They typically also get really handsome refund checks, being funded by their student loans that they used to go superfluous shopping. But that isn't even the most disgusting part. The worst part is that because these students have such a low chance of succeeding in college, they typically suck at studying, doing homework, going to class, etc. It isn't uncommon for many students to have 1.0 GPA, and these students, sometimes, not always, are retained. That's right, these students are flunking their classes. They aren't progressing toward a diploma because they are flunking classes, but they are being retained. Why? Because the college has to pay the bills. I work for a large powerful law firm that hires people as contract but treats them as full-time employees. They do this so they don't have to offer benefits, PTO, etc. But they take taxes and offer a 401k. You can bet they count on the contractors not knowing they can sue for full unemployment if they are materially treated as employees. Those cases are difficult to win, but I've seen it happen. I worked at Marshall Fields in the display department back in college. I would frequently have to change the blanket, bedding, housewares displays in the home department. They would force us to rip everything up and destroy it before disposing of the items in the garbage containers so no one could dumpster dive and collect the items, and possibly resell them or gusp use them if they were strapped. They weren't legally allowed to donate any of these items to shelters either because of brand trademark laws. I found it to be the most wasteful and disgusting act ever that it was one of the final straws that made me quit. Especially when winter rolled around and I was dumping so much brand new stuff that underprivileged people could use. I found out all that it would have taken was to contact each brand rep to see if the designer of the items would agree to donating old displays to shelters. Sure, it would have taken some effort, but none of the managers could be bothered to do something like that, and they were the only ones with the authority to execute that kind of action. We have people we pay hourly, only for the hours they physically spend face to face with a client. We require them to electronically enter notes about each client. We do not pay them for the time they spend entering notes. My friend works for a place like this. Enjoy the 25 hours a week because you're spending the other 15-20 driving from client to client and doing paperwork. Back when I worked at Five Below, they made us do this thing called email capture where we asked each customer for their email address and put it in the system and they would just receive insane amounts of spam from us. I hated doing that. I didn't ask anyone for their email address cause I thought it was creepy and stupid and it would just end up annoying them. But I got yelled at all the time for not asking for emails. Also, they would purposely put pricier items right next to the $1 bin so that it would catch customers' eyes and seem like only $1. And they wouldn't be priced so the customer would have no idea how much it was until they had already paid for it and got their receipt to look at it, and we don't do money back returns, so it would be too late. I constantly warned people all the time before I sold them anything though. God, I hated that place. Frick Five Below, don't go there. Just had a problem with Five Below overcharging me for some items. I immediately noticed the error when presented my receipt. I pointed out their error, and was told that my return could only be given as a store credit. I brought this up to corporate by email, and yada yada nothing. Not a throwaway because I am taking over my family business and we don't run our company like the C I worked for during school. McDonald's. Absolutely no hand washing. Manager embezzling money. Co-workers pretty much slapping whatever the frick they wanted on burgers. To using food that was cooked hours ago. The worst thing about working for that shithole was watching management fix labor every shift. There are several ways that management does this. 1. They get an employee to drive around the building hitting the drive-through sensors over and over. The fast drive-through time brings down our overall service times. 2. Sending people home regardless of schedule to curb costs. The store would sometimes only have 2 people working for an entire night shift. 3. Managers would literally sit at the computer and directly change employees' clock-in times. This was standard practice at every store in our area, and it was done at the end of every shift. They were literally changing the punch times so manage costs. People lost dozens of hours a month. Burger King. Every crappy thing that happened at McDonald's happened at Burger King. The managers doing drugs with employees, illegal clock time manipulations, and tons of stealing. Red Lobster. Dardened restaurants. This crap hole of a company does not give a single frick about any employee that works for them. From the corporate management down to the shift managers, there is nothing but apathy, disrespect, crap pay, and no benefits to ever be found. I would never work for any of the 3 companies above. Books a Million. Not the worst job. It was actually pretty laid back. But holy frick is the paper book industry as a cutthroat band of backstabbing. I worked for BAM for 2 years. In that 2 years I went through 7 managers, at least 30 regular employees, and 4 managers in the Joe Muggs coffee shop alone. The company pushed all employees, even the baristas, to make quotas on selling discount cards. These cards really just gave access to the internet and discounted their inflated prices back to being just above MSRP. On top of that, we had to try and sell magazine subscriptions at every sale. This was nothing more than companies trying to get people's credit card information so they could start charging them the next month without notifying them that they set up a subscription. Our managers would go to Walmart and buy like 50 prepaid cards with $1 on each. They would then buy a piece of gum or candy and sign up for a magazine sub. When the magazine company tried to charge them the following month for their sub, there would be no valid card because it only had like $12 on the prepaid card. They did this to make corporate quotas. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.